Hi everyone in the portal. I'm really excited today because we have the talk about iridology that I've been posting about, and really keen to find out what Catherine has got to say about iridology. It's so unique. I mean, I've actually heard of iridology from years back for people, but the thought of us being able to do this for our dogs is really exciting. And I'm going to hopefully try and put you over so we're just seeing Catherine, and we can hear, yes, it's worked. We can hear more from you, Catherine. Hello, and thank you so much.
Hi. Lovely to see you. Yes, I'm here in the UK. You can tell the difference in the clothes, that the temperature's a bit different. Yeah. No.
So tell us what really got you into iridology. I mean, it's such an unusual therapy for dogs.
It is. It's such an unusual, and it's one of the therapy packages that I offer. But in a nutshell, I qualified as a biologist a long while ago and always wanted to work with animals. But when I left university, there were very few options available. And so I did what I sort of went and got, as my parents called, a proper job, but have always had a lot of animals myself. And very interested in the physiology, the animal behaviour, natural health. And I always knew I wanted to go back into working with animals, but wasn't sure what modality I wanted to explore first, because I really was interested in something that was going to get to the root cause of the issues. And then I'd explore various therapies and was sort of toying with various ideas of where I would start my retraining as a therapist. And by chance, a friend gave me a present to a holistic centre. And I looked at the services on offer and saw that iridology was one of them. Went for a consult with the most amazing Australian lady, and it completely blew me away. In terms of the fact that the iridology, we're going to find out in a bit, it tells it heritage strengths and weaknesses. It's like looking into a blueprint of your body. It's like looking into an MRI scanner, because it shows past, present and future issues. And the icing on the cake of what this lady told me, and she was quite a traditional iridologist, so she didn't have one of the modern iridology cameras. She was just looking at my eye with her lens and and torch. And she even told me something that I didn't know I had, that I subsequently went on to be diagnosed with a year later.
Right.
So when that happened, I was completely hooked, and I thought, right, I've really got to learn about this, and started exploring options for doing it with animals. And since then, I then qualified as an equine iridologist, and then I've added sort of various other modalities to my service offerings over the years to give a complete package.
Mm-hmm. And who is actually training in iridology in the UK in terms of canine iridology? Who is actually training?
There's no one offering canine iridology training courses really at the moment. One of the issues with the animal iridology, I mean, if we step back a bit, human iridology is progressing at an amazing rate. I mean, human iridology has actually been practiced since the ancient Egyptians. It's a very old recognised holistic technique for managing healthcare. And some of the modern human iridologists are absolutely phenomenal. Obviously, with the new technology we've got now, with microscopes, digital cameras, computers, what we're able to do with the humans will absolutely blow your mind away. And I follow the training of an excellent iridologist called John Andrews, who lectures all over the world. Because one of the issues is there's very little training available in animal iridology for a couple of reasons. Mainly, the people that practice it are brilliant therapists themselves, but they're not into documenting it and coming up with the scientific evidence. So therefore, the knowledge, like a lot of holistic therapies, gets passed down from person to person. Mm-hmm. So when I studied, I studied equine iridology with Ellen Collinson and Mercedes Colburn, and then I went to, being a biologist with a lot of physiology background, that could fill in a lot of the gaps. And then I also have done a lot of studying with John Andrews and a lot of continual professional development on my own. And I've worked very hard over the last 10, 12 years in terms of modifying and updating the equine iridology grid with a colleague of mine, Leanne Rentmore. We worked quite closely together. to look at our documented findings. And with the dogs physiologically are much more similar to humans. So we use the human iridology grid, but we're not able to go to the levels of detail because we can't ask a dog to look down a microscope like you can with a human. So we can do a more superficial level of detail. So in terms of actually training with the equine iridology, if you look globally, the canine iridology, there are a few people offering courses, but they're very, very basic. So I now offer an equine iridology diploma and will be offering a canine iridology diploma. I haven't got an exact date for that. But what this does is goes into a lot more detail on the physiology, the mind-body connection, looking at the emotional links to diseases, which also show up in the eye very clearly through an iridology assessment. So really, like a lot of holistic therapies, the research in terms of the documented research is very much in its infancy. But I'm very lucky that I work with some very open-minded vets, and so I sort of back up all my findings with veterinary analysis and their results as well, which is amazing.
Okay, so you're
Sorry, I'm losing the connection a bit. I didn't hear that.
I wonder if you need to turn the volume slightly down at your end.
The volume?
It might be, yeah.
Right, okay. How's that sound? Was that a bit better?
Yes. No. When I talk, I think it's coming across on both ends, but it's okay. So I was just going to say, you're really pioneering with this then, which is absolutely fantastic. I really admire.
Yeah,
actually.
It is. And I've got a fantastic group of students that are studying with me now for the equine iridology. And they, again, are a real mixture in terms of what other therapies they do or don't do. Some are complete beginners and some are very established therapists. But as a therapist, I always work with other therapists, other practitioners, because every therapy is a piece of the jigsaw puzzle. So we'll come on and I'll explain in a bit more detail what iridology can and can't do in a minute, but it's absolutely vital. I mean, every single animal I'm working with, I'm learning from. So it is very much in the pioneer stage. I'm amazed that more people don't use it because it is quite incredible what it can tell you in a completely non-invasive way. But in itself, iridology doesn't, obviously we're not allowed to use the word treat, only vets are allowed to treat, but it doesn't actually solve the problem, but it pinpoints what the root causes of the problems are so that the owner, working with their therapist and vet, can then choose the most effective options to support the animal to heal physically, emotionally and spiritually.
Okay, I think of when I think of you looking at my dog's eye, for instance.
Yeah.
How would you do that, and how do you photograph it without the light from the camera damaging the eye, or don't you need any light?
Well, that's a very good question. So initially, what you do is you do the initial examination. I've just got my kit. I've just got back from on site this morning, actually, from seeing a couple of horses and a couple of cats, actually. So initially, I do the initial examination with a torch and a handheld magnifying glass. So I have a torch with an adjustable beam and a handheld magnifying glass, which will give me an initial very good reading of the eye. When you're doing an iridology assessment, you need to be out of sunlight because the reflection from the sun's light will just cause reflection and bounce off the eye. So if I'm working with a dog or a cat, it will be in a room away from windows. And if I'm working with a horse, it will be in a stable or a field shelter because you need to cut out the reflection. And then I use a digital camera. I use an SLR camera with a really lovely macro lens with a very fast shutter speed to take images of the eye. And it's really important you do the physical and the digital analysis because when people are taking pictures, obviously they can get shadows across the eyes, which could show up as false markings. So if I'm not able to, I'm obviously quite experienced in taking the pictures because I've been doing it for years. Horses are a lot easier than dogs because dogs have a very fast blink reflex.
Mm-hmm.
And also, if you look at your dog's eye next time, you'll find that their eyeball is very mobile. It's got a huge range of vision. So you need to take pictures from different angles to make sure you get it all in. So human eyes are very easy to take because obviously we've got our colour bit of the eye, which is what the iridologist is looking at, the pupil, the colour bit of the eye. And then on the human, you can see the right sclera around the eye. So it's very easy to pick out the pupil. But if you look at your dog's eye, the pupil, the colour bit, covers the whole of the visible aspect. So it's more tricky to take the pictures, particularly as dogs have a much faster blink reflex than humans.
Yeah.
So I can do, if I can't get physically to a client, if the client's got a good camera that with a macro lens on, they can take pictures and send those to me. But I ask with dogs for them to take the pictures from different angles, and it needs to be a close-up. And if the technology works, I'll show you some pictures in a minute. So.
Yeah.
But it's very non-invasive for the dogs. Obviously, as a therapist, and looking at the work you do with your spiritual work as well, my main idea is before I start working with the dogs, I'll be making them feel very comfortable with my energy, with the essential oils, etc. So that when I then start looking into the eyes, because obviously staring into a canine's eyes can be quite an aggressive, confrontational behaviour. So it's very important I just don't go wham bam straight in there, that I make sure the dog's very comfortable with me first before I do that. But the actual process is completely non-invasive.
Okay. Can we see some pictures?
Yes, let me try and share my screen with my examples. So in terms of the pictures, so now can you see that?
Not yet.
Not yet, because it's doing share screen on my end. How about that? Still no? I think we've got a few issues because I think it might be the viewing off, because on mine.
There you go.
There we go. So this is a picture of the right eye of a dog. I'll explain the significance. It's very important, the left and right eye, because the organs that sit on the right side of the body show up in the right eye. The organs that sit on the left side of the body show in the left eye. That's a bit of an oversimplification, but in general, the main indicators. And then organs like the kidneys and digestive system that sit on both sides of the body sit in both. This pale mark here is just a reflection, so I've combat for that by taking pictures from the different angles. And you can see here the dark pupil. The pupil shape is very significant, and in different species the pupil is different shapes. So in canines and humans, the pupil should be circular in shape, and any deviation from that shape is showing structural misalignments, and you can literally go right down to individual vertebrae level and see where the problem is. It's incredible. Because this area here, can you see this, Caroline?
Yes.
This rough that I'm pointing to here. This is known as the inner pupillary border, and this is the visible aspect of the central nervous system. So literally, by looking at the pupil of the eye, you can see the health state of the central nervous system, the animal you're examining. It's quite phenomenal. So we've got the central nervous system, and the pupil shape will tell me any problems that we've got with spinal misalignments issues. And then this dark ring around here is the digestive system, the stomach and digestive system of the animal. And this is where a good iridologist needs to have a very good understanding of the physiology of the species that they're working with to be able to interpret the results correctly. Because dogs, as you probably know, have got very high strength stomach acid compared to any other mammal. So it's very normal to see some acidity through the digestive system of a dog, whereas if you saw that in a horse, that would be an abnormality. So understanding the physiology of each species is really key to making sure your analysis is accurate. So as an iridologist, we're looking at various different levels of details. We're looking at various shapes and any deviation from what's considered normal. We're looking at the various different structures. So going out from the eye, you have the digestive system, and then the rest of this area of the coloured bit of the iris, between the iris and ignoring the sclera here, which is a completely different discipline in itself. We're looking for markings, fibre textures, lines, etc. So a whole different level of detail that we go down into, which gives us a really detailed pattern of what's going on. So in this particular dog, so this particular dog, sorry, this is the left eye. This area here is actually quite significant mark through the dog's spleen. And this dog was asymptomatic when I saw it, had a few other associated issues associated with the digestive system and skin. But when I saw this mark in the spleen, I was able to alert the owner that there was a potential developing issue there that they needed to look out for, what symptoms to look out for. And actually, this dog was taken along for a check to their vets. And when it was under anaesthetic, having its hips x-rayed, they actually found a tumour on the spleen, which, had they not found it then, would have ruptured and the dog would have lost its life. So one of the beauties of iridology is it shows up issues long before the symptoms manifest. So by the time any of us, of any species, by the time we show physical symptoms, the problem's been going on in our body for a long while. And the earlier we catch the problem, the greater the chances of a successful outcome. And the greater the choices the owner and the animal has got in terms of management action to bring their body back into balance. So what the iridology will actually do is it will show a qualified practitioner which areas of health are inherited and which are acquired. And that's really useful. So any of us who've, with our own health and with our animals, we all know that, you know, you can feed one dog one diet and it will suit it beautifully, and you can do exactly the same with another dog and it won't suit it as well, because we're all born with inherited strengths and weaknesses. And if, as an owner, you know what your animal's inherited strengths and weaknesses are, you can support them early enough and make better lifestyle choices for them to hopefully stop the problems occurring. Mm-hmm. So a classic example would be one of the inherited personality traits that shows up very clearly in iridology is a stressy personality, an inherited warrior thinker, or an inherited hot temperament. Now, if you know you've got an animal that's prone to internalizing stress, they might not show that to you very easily, and yet the underlying problems will be building up, often unaware, with the owner not being aware of it. Whilst if someone can point that out to you, you can make different choices to help alleviate and help your animal deal with their stress, often through helping the owner deal with their stress, and prevent the problems occurring in the first place, which is what we're aiming for. So the level of detail that you can actually see is amazing. In terms of where we are technology-wise at the moment, the human, you can go right down to different layers of the colour bit of the eye, the iris, and see right back through the generations. With animals, because we're looking with a camera and the handheld equipment, we're looking more at the overall picture of areas of inflammation, blockages, constitutional strengths and weaknesses. And basically it really helps sort of myself as a practitioner to pinpoint where the root causes of a problem are. Because often traditional medicine will treat the symptom, not the root cause. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yes, definitely. So do you have any other eyes we can see?
Yes, we've got some other eyes. Let's go into my little portfolio. So this is quite an interesting one.
And Catherine?
Yes.
Do you find that you're talking about generations and generations? So we're sort of in this way seeing stored information, you know, that they talk about maybe epigenetically there.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, this is a way to sort of prove stored information, is it, in one sense?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm really pleased you mentioned the epigenetics, because as an iridologist, this has been a major breakthrough, the sort of recognition that we are not our genes. So when I was taught biology all those years ago, you know, genetics was all about you're almost a victim of your genetic makeup. We now know that's not the case at all, and that at least 95% of disease is due to lifestyle choices, environment. And by environment, I mean everything from diet to stress to pollution to EMF, the whole works. And actually your genetics have very little to do with it. However, if you understand what you're susceptible to genetically, you can make different choices. So as an iridologist, we say there is no such thing as a bad constitution, but there are bad lifestyle choices to make for different constitutional types. So for example, if you have a lymphatic constitution, which means, which shows up very clearly in an iridology assessment, anyone with a lymphatic constitution means that they've got sort of inherited weaknesses in their lymphatic system. So they would be much more prone to food intolerances, allergies, intolerances to medication, itis conditions, inflammation conditions. So if you as a dog owner knew that your dog had an inherited lymphatic constitution, you would need to be much more careful about the choices you made with regard to nutrition and medication than someone that had more, for example, the equivalent of a human dark brown eye, which is the hematogenic constitution, and they're more prone to the blood disorders, the blood pressure disorders, the cancers, etc. So we're not saying that by looking at the eye, if they've got an inherited mark there, that means they're going to develop that condition, but they'd be more prone to it, so you'd need to make more appropriate lifestyle choices than perhaps another person that didn't have that inherited weakness there in the first place.
Yes.
So the epigenetics is massive, and it really helps us look at the iridology assessment with a new set of glasses on, effectively, in terms of, yes, this animal is displaying these inherited tendencies, and those have been acquired over the generations. However, they don't have to manifest themselves.
Mm-hmm.
But if we give the owner the right information to help making right choices for their animal.
Yeah, I'm finding it fascinating that the link that I mean, perhaps I'd thought of it before, but the link between the eyes and our soul has been discussed, of course, hasn't it? I mean, people say they're the windows to our soul, but on a level of how we've evolved, if it was scientific biological evolution, if it was energetic evolution somehow,
yeah.
Just amazing. I'm like in awe of it all, really. But I also want to hear about this eye, or see about this eye.
Yeah, so this eye is actually of a 12-year-old Labrador. There's a few interesting things here. The digestive ring here is much narrower, this distance between the pupil and the rest of the iris. And this is showing a very, very strong digestive system. The grey bits here are quite high levels of acidity. This dog's fed on a raw food diet. Very, very healthy digestive-wise. Type of dog that absorbs their nutrients very, very effectively, so will put on weight very easily. So this is actually a very healthy digestive system. One of the other things that shows up very clearly is dysbiosis, so a gut microflora imbalance, which is so prevalent in all of us at the moment for, obviously environmental reasons and the processing of our food and the chemicals used and the stress, etc. So this dog has got a very healthy digestive system. This black mark, this darker sort of orangey mark through here is actually through the spinal cord, through the spinal system. And this is actually the left eye of the dog. Now, can you see this black mark down through here?
Yes.
Where my thing is here. This is a black mark through the bladder. And this is really interesting because this dog had a series of really severe bladder infections as a young dog. I didn't know that when I saw it. And this has left a bit of scar tissue here in the bladder area, that again, it's useful for the owner to be aware of, because as the dog ages, it might need a little bit of extra support in that area. Another area that's really interesting is this sort of whiter mark through here, which is through the kidney area. Again, this is related to the fact that when this dog was younger, it had severe sort of bladder and uterus infection and was put on very strong antibiotics, which can have sort of detrimental effect on the kidneys. So even though the kidney in the other eye is showing no signs of damage at all, and this one, it was showing some scar tissue. And so I followed that up with a self-selection, the zoopharmacognosy animals self-medicating, and indeed this dog selected quite a lot of kidney herbs. So that was interesting. And again, showing no physical signs, but being able to get in there before the physical signs manifested itself is much more effective. And it's amazing what gets picked up in the iridology and what the animals will select for. Apart from this is a very healthy eye. It's got a very different coloration structure, and in terms of inherited wise, this dog has got more of the inherited, what we would call the mixed constitutional types in a human, which would be more prone to the digestive and pancreatitis issues. But the dog, again, is on a very healthy raw diet with good supplementation, good vegetable mixture. So the only other things that I would point out to this owner is this dog here. If you see these little black marks here, these are actually through the hind leg, and this black mark here corresponds to a problem that the dog had in its knee joints. It actually had a bilateral TPLO. And these marks will show the damage that was there before the operation, because one thing that's really interesting with iridology is iridology will not show anything that's been done under anaesthetic, because the way anaesthetics work is to block the electrical impulses getting up into the brain. Otherwise, as soon as it came round from the anaesthetic, you'd feel all the pain from the operation. So, and it's interesting because people don't really know how anaesthetics work, but if you're doing an iridology analysis, say if someone's had their spleen removed, the spleen will show in the eye in the state it was at before it was removed. So you, as I say, the anaesthetic, because the way the iridology works is that, say for example, I have a problem in my heart, we are all vibrational balls of energy. So you know the work that you do, and if an area of the body is damaged or diseased, the vibrational rate falls, and that change in vibrational rate sends electrical signals through the nervous system up through the central nervous system, and all the nerves of your body are connected to the iris of the eye, the colour part of the eyes, via your central nervous system. So if I have a problem in my heart, the vibrational rate of the cells in that part of the heart drop. That changes the electrical impulse that are going from my heart up to my brain, which then results in a mark in the eye. So, but when something's done under anaesthetic, the anaesthetic stops those electrical impulses hitting the brain so that the patient doesn't feel the pain. And therefore, what will show in the eye is the state of the body tissue before the anaesthetic was had taken place.
Wow.
So for this dog, I was able to say, yeah, you know, very strong digestive system, very well balanced digestive system, no sign of dysbiosis. The dog was actually on a probiotic as well. There's a few structural areas that of concern. So there's some little flattening off of the pupil shape down here, which corresponds to some lumbosacral region issues that the dog was experiencing. And on one of the other photos I've got of the other eye, it shows a slight issue structurally in the neck as well. And in terms of these areas, this slightly dark area down through here, again, it's nothing to worry about. It's just some changes through from the pelvis that the dog was associated with the structural issues the dog was having. So the other thing is that you're able to see an iridologist, because it's like a blueprint of that moment in time. You can monitor the progressions of things and again pick up if things are going in the right direction or the wrong direction. So certain marks will never change. So these marks now related to this old leg injury will never go. They're like a permanent stamp of record in there. But what you're looking for is the marks aren't progressing and getting worse. Whereas actually the digestive system, if you've got, for example, dysbiosis, gut microflora imbalance, or problems there being caused by a toxic digestion due to the dog being on an inappropriate diet, you can see changes in the health and colour of the digestive system as the dog recovers. So certain marks will go and certain marks will be there forever.
Okay.
And what's lovely is in the past, the animal iridologist didn't have the technology that we've got now, not only in terms of the cameras, but also the computer programs to store the photos, enlarge them, enhance them, etc. So the research is just moving on at a real rate. And that's one thing I really encourage with all my students, is that they have to take the photographic evidence so that they're working with other health professionals, whether they're holistic health professionals or veterinary health professionals, so that we're getting more and more evidence to back up the findings, which we know are there.
Can we go to the other screen with us both?
Pardon? So to stop sharing?
Yes, if we can.
Yeah.
Yes.
So is that gone now? Yes, it worked. Fantastic.
We can still.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you know, I'm absolutely amazed, like not just from the diagnostic point of view, you know, because how useful is that? But I'm really glad that I asked you to talk, because I think I probably personally hadn't really totally 100% made the connection between the eyes and, you know, like who we really are.
Absolutely.
And where we've perhaps come from and how we're connected, because our eyes are, of course, seeing the world. So,
yeah.
You know, and what's also fascinating for me is how much of the eye takes up with the digestive system. I mean, we know the digestive system is a key thing that we have to be thinking about in terms of health and well-being, and even our emotional well-being.
Exactly.
But to see that is like most of the eye, it's like, whoa, hang on, like this is so cool.
You are so spot on, and this is what I love, because as a therapist I'm about pulling the whole picture together. And John Andrews, who's, as I've mentioned before, he's the most amazing human iridologist. I'm lucky he's coming to do a presentation at my office in a couple of weeks' time. He's incredibly difficult to get hold of, but he specialises in the emotional dynamics of the eyes. So I, in some of my other therapies I'm also a red light therapist practitioner, and I look at, which is working on acupoints and balancing the body through that. And what the eye also shows, and you picked up on this, is yes, they do say the eyes are the window to the soul. And they tell you so much energetically as well as physiologically what's going on. So iridology, and this is what annoys some traditional sciences, like all holistic practitioners, it's a true mix of science and art. So the science and the signs are there, and you've picked up perfectly again about how significant the digestive system is, and aren't we all just knowing that now? I mean, look at how that's come to light over the last 5 years, about this is the crux of virtually everything. But also about the emotional and the energetic connection. So as a practitioner, I take that responsibility really seriously. So like all holistic practitioners, your intent is absolutely crucial to the results you get. You know, it's very invasive. And when I do classes with people, I get people to spend time staring into each other's eyes and how personal that feels. And so to ask the animal and make sure that they trust you enough to be able to show you what they want to show you and reveal to you what they want to reveal to you. And a lot of it will be there in pure black and white, as you like, the physical evidence. But it's then looking at the subtleties and the energetics behind it that will really make the difference in the analysis. And the other thing that I think you'll love with your work is it's absolutely uncanny how much similarity there is between what's going on health-wise between the animal and the owner.
Really? Oh,
and
yeah.
The links are unbelievable. So often, you know, there's a real mirror going on there. There's no accident, as we all know, about who ends up with which animals in their lives. And sometimes that can be fantastic. So sometimes when you're working to support what you're finding through your iridology findings and the other modalities that you're using, it's also very important to see whether that resonates with the owner or the carer, so that it might be highlighting areas that they need to address as well.
Yeah, I think I'm going to stop the recording at that stage, because that's that's super cool. I love the fact that that's the case. So thank you, those of you that have watched this and enjoyed this. And on the Pawtal photo albums and on the feed, you'll be able to see details about what Catherine does. She also has a store as well, which at the moment you can get 10% discount on, so check that out as well. What's the website of the store? Just tell us that.
So the two websites is www.naturallyanimals.co.uk, is where I sell all the natural remedies, and they're for humans and animals alike. And then on the training and consult side of things, it's www.catherineedwardsacademy.com. So separating out the two. So if you want to know more information, please do just contact me.
Yeah, fabulous. Okay.
Lovely, thank you.